This podcast is rated IS for incredibly silly and definitely contains bad words, bad jokes, and other bad content that should not be heard by anyone, least of all children. Or maybe it should be. We don't know. We're still not their parents. You're listening to the Starforge podcast with Scya and Mal, two nerdy humans who still have a lot to say about Star Wars: The Old Republic and all its features. Rest assured, the podcast is, as always, working as intended. This is episode 16, Operations Boss Championship, Part 1. Hello, SWTOR players. I am Mal.
And I'm Scya.
And we're here to bring you this lovely edition of the Starforge podcast. We are on episode 16. Can't believe it. We've made it so far.
We made it incredibly far, but we still have more episodes than there are operations in the game, and that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Burn on you, game. Scya, you've been doing a lot of ops lately, right? Team Chaos, you've been crushing it every morning.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of fun. I started a new little project. I was looking at my list of things that I wanted to do before the expansion hit, and to be honest, I didn't want to start any new big projects, but I still wanted to do something every morning that I streamed, so I decided, hey, if I can't think of what to do every single morning until the expansion hits, I'm going to do my favorite thing, and we are doing something called Obstravaganza, where we run an operation literally every day until the expansion hits. We'll have hit all of the base full-scale operations by the time the X-Pack hits, and it's been a lot of fun. We're running them in 16-man story mode, and I'm playing that every morning in addition to running in a nightmare mode operation once a week with Mal every Thursday night.
But that's going to be coming to a crashing halt very soon. Well, that's good sound effects.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I am both a tank and a Foley artist. No, actually, I'm not very good at either of those things. What we are good at, though, is trash talking operations, and that's what we're going to be doing today.
Disappointing other people. Let's get ready to rumble! This is the Operations Boss Fight Championship, where Scya and I will pit fight against fight for all the operations in the SWTOR community. We are going to tell you what is our favorite, what we like, and what we would throw in the fucking trash.
So for anyone who's not familiar, operations are the end game content, high level content, soon to be level 80 content that you do with a group. There's story mode, which is quite easy, veteran mode, which is quite a bit of a step up, and nightmare mode or master mode, which is very, very hard. This is content that both me and Mal really, really love, and it's definitely some of my favorite content in the game. So what operations are there in the game, Mal?
Well, some of us were surprised to discover that there are 11 operations in the game.
Scya.
There are 11 operations currently in the game. We have the very first originals, Eternity Vault and Kuraga's Palace. After that, Explosive Conflict premiered, followed by Terror from Beyond, Scum and Villainy. Then we have Dread Fortress, Dread Palace, The Ravagers, Temple of Sacrifice, Gods from the Machine, and what is it called? Nature of Progress.
And a partridge in a Toboro's courtyard tree. We're excluding all the little one-off boss operations, but we do know a 12th operation is, allegedly.
I'm sorry, I'm holding my breath until it comes.
Don't! I really don't want you to. You might die.
Tell him to
allegedly.
Tell him to hurry. Tell him to hurry.
Dear BioWare, I need you to hurry. The operation is Mal is going to asphyxiate, like she would if we threw her out the airlock. Supposedly, a new operation called the R4 Anomaly will be coming sometime in 2022. It was originally supposed to be launched with the expansion, but they decided to push it back, and the expansion got pushed back. We'll get there when we get there.
So let's kick this off with the very first operation ever in SWTOR, Eternity Vault. Ugh.
What? Excuse me, what do you mean?
Ugh. Let's just talk about the bosses. real quick, and then we'll get into that. So there are 5 bosses in Eternity Vault. We have the Annihilation Droid, Garge, the Ancient Pylons, the Infernal Council, and Soa. Now listen, I honestly, I don't hate this zone. I don't
Look.
hate the
that
fights.
is not.
That
is not how you started this conversation out. You started this conversation out with, ugh.
It's so old. I don't think it's aged well. And it's just, you can tell it's the first one because the mechanics are just not that hard. It's nothing to write home about. It's very good if you're just starting out, but when you've been playing a while, it's just very boring. It's so boring, it's not even fun anymore. And it doesn't even have a nightmare mode. It used to, but now it doesn't. They took it away. And I don't know, I wish they'd bring it back. I wish they'd add some pep in the EV step.
We need some spice in our life for Eternity Vault. This one, I like this one a lot, but I really do hope one day we see a Nightmare Mode version that has some new mechanics. That would be really cool. I was hoping for it for 10th anniversary, but they really do have their hands full with just, managing the basics right now.
Yeah, so honestly, off the top of my head, I think the first boss in this op is actually really strong because it has a couple mechanics that can be very punishing. This is sort of like, this is the bread and butter of ops in SWTOR. You've got circles to get out of on the floor, and you've got AoE missiles that you can't avoid that you have to heal through, and you have knockbacks. That's like the meat and potatoes of SWTOR. Shit to get out of, knockbacks, and AoE damage.
I love that first fight so much. It's great. It really teaches you the group movement stuff, stay out of the bad stuff, and you also get to tell your group, wash your feet. If you like to troll on the first fight.
Watch or wash?
Well, if you're trolling, you say wash.
Wash your feet?
Wash your feet, everyone.
I have never heard that in my life.
You're welcome. You're welcome to use that next time you run a story mode operation.
Okay. So what I love about this is I love the Infernal Council fight because everybody has to pick their person and it has to be the right person for you. You have to swipe left on your Infernal Council person. And then it's like a mini game of who can finish their Infernal Council person first. So that one's my favorite in this op.
The council fight is so fun to bring new players into. There's such an intense rush when you're waiting on that one player who just started learning how to play their class. Maybe this is their first operation. Your entire group is circled around them, staring them down, hoping that they beat it before the timer. Everyone's used their one final push single ability attack, and you're like, are they going to make it? Are they going to make it? Oh my God, yeah! And you all go collect your loot together.
Yeah, so that one's your favorite too?
I don't think it's my favorite. I do really love watching that final down to the wire fight.
Okay, so what's your favorite in Eevee?
Oh, I am Soa. By far. Soa is just such an epic fight to walk into. If I could, I always tell people that the first operation you should join should be the one with friends to lead you, a friendly group, maybe with a guild, maybe with people you know, maybe with a super friendly batch of people you met along the way. Whatever the first operation they're going to lead that has the spot for you, go in that one. Don't try and run them in a specific order. Just go in the first nice group you get. But if I could pick a first operation for everyone, I would pick Soa every time. I would pick Eternity Vault. It's so classic and it's such a weird mix of stuff. By far my favorite fight, though, is going to have to be Soa. It makes me laugh every time. I love leading this one, leading groups, especially new groups, because I know people are going to plummet to their deaths. Possibly me. Very likely me because I'm not paying attention, but it's funny and hilarious every time. Not to mention people get flung up into the air and crash around the room. I cracked up so hard the first time we were running a nightmare mode operation that had a similar mechanic, and everyone kept shouting that they were getting Soa'd. I was just like, oh. That's how you know this operation is a classic, when other people refer to it in different operations.
All right, so 1 vote Soa, 1 vote Infernal Council. So what are we putting in the trash? Because I tell you what, I'm putting that stupid pylon fight, floop, right in the trash can. That fight blows.
I have a specific trash can with a label for pylon fight in story mode and hard mode. Please put it right in there. Just straight in the garbage. Oh my god. So this is supposed to be one of the easiest operations in the game, and yet twice in 2 different groups. They were not necessarily the most experienced, but they weren't total reject groups or anything. Twice, 2 different groups, 2 completely different days in 16-man. We have failed the pylon by doing the all left trick. And I'm just like, how can you even fail a story mode operation? Why does it let you? And it's not like there's anything super fun going on. You're just clicking a button and fighting a bunch of Ackleys. Ah!
Yeah. And I hate when you get in there and people are like, I'm going to solve the puzzle. Our side is 3 left, 2 right, 2 right. No, the answer is it all goes to the left because this fight is 12 years old and nobody cares.
It doesn't, because if you do that, sometimes you will fail. Oh, I don't think any fight should involve having a single person solving a puzzle alone. Really defeats the purpose of, operations for I think they're called for a group of people. Garbage.
All right, so we both agree that fight is garbage. All right, trash can is a little more full. So that's kind of it for EV. But let's move on to the next operation, just as old as EV, right?
I always forget because I didn't quite start playing operations yet. I believe Eternity Vault came out a little before Karaga's Palace, but not much before. Not in the grand scope of things. It's 10 years old, give or take.
Right.
So in Karaga's Palace, we have 5 bosses: Bone Thrasher, Jargon Sorno, Foreman Crusher, the Heavy Fabricator Droid, the puzzle boss, and Karaga himself. I think this is the easiest story mode operation, just by far. At this point, compared to the other operations, it has so few mechanics, I don't even like to run it anymore, even though it's easy and fast to play.
It's really boring. I think this one might even be more boring than EV.
Like EV, you got your one-on-one fight. You can plummet to your death. You can get singed by lava. Karaga's, I don't even know if there really is a way to auto-die unless you really, really mess up and fall in the acid when you're fighting the Rancor.
Yeah, this one also has a lot more trash in between each
stuff
fight.
in between.
And a lot more annoying trash. You know what I mean? Like that thing that calls those murder droids. Ugh, like just annoying.
I keep forgetting. So there's some trash in between the big fights where it will call more enemies if you don't deal with it. And there's also some healers around. If you don't deal with them, they'll heal everything. You'll just have a million droids. I always forget that in 16-person in story mode, those healers cannot be stunned. So I will instruct my group, okay, good. You guys went. I saw you run in on your stealther and you stunned them. And we start the fight and just absolute chaos reigns. Oh, I guess we're called Team Chaos for a reason.
Team Chaos.
I do know you quite like one of the fights in here, though.
I do. And my favorite fight in here, hands down, is Jargon Sorno. Because I feel like this is one of the first fights where you're fighting 2 distinct people and they are bantering during the fight. And it is so funny. A lot of people, you quote this all the time. People quote Jargon Sorno all the time, like, kill the little one. Which one's the little one?
Which one's the little one?
They're all little. So funny. And it's neat because back in the day, you needed 2 tanks, one on each one. Sometimes they'd go away. They had stuff that had to be managed, like interrupts.
They were serious mechanics.
Right. You had to, you really had to pay attention. And I think this is one of the first fights where you really did have to pay attention to what was going on and pay attention to your interrupts, pay attention to circles on the floor, pay attention to those little carbonizer droids you have to kill. I think this fight is a good preview of a lot of mechanics and ideas that were used in later ops. How about you? What's your favorite here?
By far, I like fighting Karaga. A giant hut in a spider droid with a bell hat that drops oil everywhere, and there's drills that come out of the ground and baby mouse droids that explode. Like, when will that not be funny? And Mal's just sitting there shaking my head like, no, just none of that. It also just offers so many silly opportunities. Like, you can literally land the boss on the elevator, and when it dies, you can watch the elevator go up and down with its corpse. What more could you want from an operation?
That is very silly. I'll give you that. Not my favorite, but okay, valid points. Valid points have been made here.
To be fair, I would be happy grabbing a broom and sweeping this entire operation gently into the garbage, except for the Cantina Band music and the final fight.
So, in the garbage for this one, and there's a
The
lot,
whole
like
thing.
I
It
said,
can
we
go.
could put the whole thing, but if I had to pick just one, the fabricator droid is just going right in the trash. They had like a real boner for puzzles in this day and age. Like, what the
In
fuck?
story mode, there's no puzzle. You know that, right?
No.
They took the puzzle out of story mode.
Oh my
the puzzle
God.
is pre-solved, and you just press the button to set the droid on fire.
Oh my God. Like, what's even the point?
There is no
Like,
point.
what's the point of that?
Useless. Like I said, sweep it
Anyway.
off gently into the
Yeah.
garbage.
And on hard mode, it's just like a big pain in the ass without everyone having to press those buttons. It's just, I don't know. It's just stupid.
I don't want to talk about this one anymore. I'm done.
All right, we're all done with that. So next up, we're moving on. What are we in now? 2013? Okay, chucking along. Next up is one that is so near and dear to me, explosive conflict. This was the first op I ever did at a nightmare level. Like, forget EV and KP.
Oh, me too. Me too.
First for real op I did on a nightmare level at scale when it came out. It is this op, and most of the guild and most of the friends I have to this very day I met when I was doing that operation. So thanks, EC. The bosses in EC are Toth and Zorn, the Drooks, Stormcaller and Firebrand, the tanks, Colonel Vorgath, the minefield, and Walker and Kefis, the mess.
Is that the official designation? The mess?
The mess. Pretty much all of these fights can be trouble. Every one of these fights can absolutely just be a group destroyer. And I kind of like that. I didn't like it at first. It was one of the worst nights of my life trying to do this fucking operation my first day in the guild.
This whole operation is so hard, even in story mode. I love that this one was the first one, real difficult mechanics that came out. It's just like you. It was my first one that I took on at a nightmare mode level, and I'm still a little bit traumatized by it, I think. I still, whenever I hear explosive conflict, I'm like, ah, Kevin's
I feel you. And I don't know what was happening. There's a lot of like separate mechanics here. Like maybe a couple people were going through a divorce on the dev team because your group spends a lot of time like split up here. Like, or am I going with mom or am I going with dad? Am I Toth or am I Zorn? Am I Stormcaller or am I Firebrand? I don't know.
It's true. You really are split up in this one. I think that was their first way of trying to figure out mechanics was, okay, let's split up the group. Let's start with that and go from there.
Right. And this was the first time where you really had to pay attention. You had to pay attention to your debuffs. Right off the bat, you have to watch and make sure you don't get fearful. In Nightmare, you have to watch for the debuff you need to pop that med pack to take it off you.
Oh boy.
Yeah, on the tanks, you got to watch which ad has the explosion thing. You got to watch if you've got double destruction. You got to cleanse
You're
yourself.
right. I didn't realize that.
Right. There's a lot more that you have to look at and pay attention to. This is the first time because EVKP, you don't really need to look at anything.
There's mechanics, but not your buffs or your debuffs. I think you had to interrupt certain abilities, but that was the closest it came to actually watching the specific moves.
Right. And I mean, the Kefis fight, I mean, my God, there are so many different phases. You've got the little droids in the beginning. You do like 20 things before Kefis even appears for you to fight. So for me, all these fights are strong. My favorite, I don't know. Let's go with the tanks because I feel like at this point, I am really pro at doing the tanks. And it used to be my worst fight in this whole game. And now it is one of my best fights in this game. So I'm picking the tank. I will never, ever, ever, ever forget when we finally got those tanks down for the first time. And I heard that reactor overload, eject. Oh, sweeter words were never heard in Mal's ears than that to this day. So
Oh, I love that tank fight. The tank fight was the one I picked for my favorite as well. It's incredibly hard tuned on all difficulty modes. Even in story mode, your team really has to be there and paying attention. And that's one we often wipe on even with Team Chaos, and we have to do a couple times. But it is such a good feeling passing it, even in story mode. I had a similar experience with Mal. The first time I passed it in nightmare mode was just like, I don't know if there's something close to pure bliss. Maybe eating a whole box of chocolate ice cream to yourself might be similar to passing the tanks. I think if there's something I'd like to check out the airlock, though, it's that final fight in nightmare mode, but only so I can sleep better at night.
the final fight is really long. I swear to you, though, once you learn it, it's not that bad. For me, I think I would throw the minefield in the garbage. Just because it has a little bit of RNG to it, like you get a good puzzle, you get a bad puzzle, and I have seen weird things go wrong in that fight. Like I did
There's
it
all
once.
kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah, sometimes weird stuff happens there, or stuff happens it's not supposed to because of the minefield mechanic. Once we caught 2 droids that came out, and that was I had
Surprise!
never seen that one before. Just when you think you've seen it all. Thanks,
I
SWTOR.
really, really liked that one for being so different the first time I saw it when I was first playing. These days, I do like it though, because I really love watching it. My story mode players step into the wrong places on the minefield and get blasted into the air and die, just like falling to your death on SOA. I will never be sick of watching people kill themselves. Makes me crack up every time. That's how I pay the bills as the raid leader. I get paid in avoidable deaths that make me laugh.
All right, so after EC, here comes, I don't know how you feel about it, but one of my favorites.
Terror from Beyond is the next operation in our list, and here are the bosses we're going to talk about. There's the Writhing Horror that will get you prego. The Dread Guards, who will not get you prego, but you wish they would. Operator 9, which is no good for people who are colorblind, or just people who are bad at playing the game. Kephis 2.0, not so undying after all. And Low-Tech, the Terror from Beyond, who's incredibly lore-friendly, but when you meet him, is just a giant space slug that is also pregnant. So this is such a cool operation. I'm so lucky and grateful to my guild. When this first came out, they agreed to let me go in blind, as well as my other teammates. We'd had some people who'd already played it, but you know, our registered trade guild group night, we hadn't all tried it out yet. And I asked, could you please let us have one wipe before you say any spoilers or any strategies? And they agreed. And that is the best way to go into this one. Not only is the whole area really, really cool looking on the planet. Is it Assation? I always forget.
Yes, that's what the zone is called, yeah.
The swamp planet. But you also have that crazy portal aspect in the final fight that just throws everything topsy-turvy. If you don't know what's coming, and I always tell my raid groups, I'll explain the first part of this fight, but halfway through something's going to happen and just roll with it. Everything's going to change.
Right. Aesthetically, this is probably my favorite or second favorite zone to do operations in the game. I love how this place looks, especially leading up to Operator 9. Everybody calls it the Tron fight. Call it whatever you want. It has a spacey sci-fi feel, and I just fucking love it. It looks awesome. My favorite fight in here is the Dread Guard. We meet Hyrad, Kelsara, and Cyphus, and then we kill them. Bet in a few years we'll pay for that one.
Is that them? Is that them, the Dread Guard? Is that actually Hyrad, Kelsara, and Cyphus? Like, they're dead, right? They're not coming back to haunt me in my dreams later, right?
No, but I bet some other people will be a little bit upset about that.
Oh, I wonder who that could be. We may talk about them later. You scared me for a minute there.
No,
I'm
so
very worried.
yeah, I really like the Dreadguard fight. Something I really like about it is there are suddenly a lot of sound and vocal cues. We used to struggle with this sometimes on Thursday. My sound would go bananas. And a couple other people had this problem too, where the sound would be off. I relied a lot, and I didn't even know it until the sound was gone.
The cues, yeah.
The cues were influencing what I was doing. Like, I know to swap off Hyrad to Cyphus when he says, your struggle only prolongs the pain. Okay, swap to Cyphus and DPS him until his, wait a minute, but he didn't say it. Oh my God.
Absolutely. And the cues, I think, are such an important part of combat, especially for players who are maybe not necessarily great at watching everything around them. And that's not something I excel at, but the cues, the audio cues, especially because your whole team's not usually talking at once. If you got a good team, shut up, everybody. I need to hear the audio cues. They are very specific. They are the same every time. They're not going to be hidden by your teammate casting a really flashy ability. They're not going to be hidden by the other 40 buffs that are on that enemy at the time. But I love the audio cues, and you're right. They really stepped up their game for this one, especially for the harder modes.
Right. So I think that one's my favorite. Do you have a favorite in here?
I was trying to think if I have a favorite. My trolling favorite is the first one because I love telling my tanks that they're pregnant and then showing them that they're literally pregnant and then I'm not trolling. Like, look, those are your babies and now we're going to kill them. And I will never forget the first time that someone explained it to me as we'd been progressing to it together. And I was like, oh my God, looking over my shoulder, I am pregnant. I didn't even notice that was what was going on in this fight. And the final fight mechanically is kind of a mess. It's really chaotic. I don't know if I'd say the mechanics, the fight itself is my favorite, but the aesthetics and that jump from fighting this giant monster in a swamp, fighting its tentacles, into this portal in another region. And when you reach like the final percentage point, the boss gets sucked into a giant portal from beyond and dragged into it. How cool is that? Every time that it happens, even years down the road now, I turn off my UI, I stop all DPS, and I just watch that sucker get sucked through the portal.
I appreciate that fight aesthetically, and I do see what you're saying, and I do think it looks very cool, especially when you're in the second floor and you have all those portals. Personally, though, in this zone, I think I would put that one in the garbage because it's very long. And to be honest with you, it's very boring. You fight tentacles and ads outside 3 times, and then
The same waves over and over.
and then you fight inside, wait for it, tentacles again.
Same waves over and over.
And then little sparkly things around the room. That's it. It's just, I don't find it that interesting. It is very hard, especially in this iteration on Nightmare, because the DPS check is very tight. But to me, that doesn't really make an interesting fight.
I've never still completed this final fight in Nightmare mode, in Master mode for this one. I think we struggled to even get into the second phase. Those tentacles are nasty. Not only is there that really high DPS check, but as a tank, to keep me interested and motivated to be a good tank, is things to happen. Not a lot happens for the tank there. You just kind of keep repeating the same thing over and over.
It's really boring, and I think there's better fights in there. The Dread Guards, and I would say
I love the Dread Guards.
Op 9. Op 9 is a great fight. It confuses so many people. So many people are confused by, where's the middle? But where's the middle? What do you mean stand in the middle? Stand in the middle of the fucking room. In the circle. Oh my God.
Get over here so you don't die.
Click the panel. No, click it. No, don't let go. Just stay Oh my God.
There is a lot going on mechanically in that fight. You're really right. Whenever I think of that fight, all I think of is the aesthetics, the way it looks, the colors. And to be honest, I have a hard time remembering the mechanics, even though I've pretty much mastered them at this point.
So are you putting the terror in the trash?
Terror we can take a screenshot of, use it as our desktop background, and then sweep it off into the trash can with medium amounts of effort. We're not banging that sucker in like we want it to die. It's okay. It's all right. We're going to talk about an operation, though, that's not quite as pretty. Next up.
No. So next up is the longest operation in the existence of this game for some reason. Scum and Villainy has 7.
Why?
You know,
I've never seen an answer about this, but why?
I don't know. My guess is this one came at a time where there was kind of a bit of a content drought. Wasn't there?
So they were like, let's add extra bosses, I guess?
I guess, like, more to do. Like, you can really spread out your ops time, I guess.
But I don't know.
Well,
what bosses were there?
Well, what we have in here, we have the Dash Road, Titan 6, Thrasher, the Operations Chief, Olak the Shadow, the Cartel Warlords, and the Dreadmaster himself, Styrak.
Oh my god, there's so many bosses in this one. Just to the sheer amount of bosses, I do not actually offer to run this one very often, except on like special occasions when someone says, like a friend says, I've never run this one before. Okay, I'll do it special for you. That's it. My time's so precious to me, or at least my stamina is. Maybe not my time, but I just don't like to run it much anymore.
Yeah, I mean, one thing's for sure though is that there's a lot going on in this zone, and it starts right off the bat, and a lot of it that's going on is annoying. This is one of the first ops I think I did where I'm like, wow, that's really annoying that you do that. Like, okay, here's where we are.
Are we talking about the bosses or the trash?
I mean,
both.
There is a lot of trash in here, and oh my god, and these are TFB had one too. Those the money bosses. Yes, I used to say I'll pay you money to go right on by the money boss and keep on trucking.
Skip.
So there's that first one. Oh, you get lost in the sandstorm. There's a lot of movement. He's always knocking you back. There's ads.
I don't love the mechanics of that one, but I think the aesthetics are really cool. You've got this swirling sandstorm around you, makes for some cool screenshots. Everybody's running real slow. I get to be the tank, so I just pop my hydraulic overrides and be like, bye, suckers!
Zoom, zoom. That's how Mal dies on the Tread Council.
Bye! Oh, I killed you the other day. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, we can tell that story later when we get there. Oh, so a lot of this, oh boy, some of it is very challenging. The Dash Road, it's not the easiest boss right off the bat. Not even in hard mode because of the getting lost mechanic. In Nightmare, it can be even a little bit tricky. Titan 6, not easy.
I don't think I've done this one in Nightmare mode at all. I don't think I've even stepped foot in it, probably for the same reason of it's long.
It's really long. So, but there are a couple fights in here that are some of my favorite. The Cartel Warlords is on Nightmare probably one of the hardest Nightmare fights to get through the first 2 to 3 minutes of.
Is that the set of 4 enemies that you fight together?
Yes. On Nightmare, it's kind of like you're kind of popping everything in the first 2 to 3 minutes to keep everybody alive. That is the most intense. It is very intense. It's intense DPS. It's intense healing. There is a lot going on in that fight. And it's almost like refreshing because you have to pay so much attention to what you're doing. And then right after that, Styrak, also very challenging, tight DPS check, especially in Nightmare.
So tight, yeah, on the lightning, where it's closing in on you, right?
Right, because you have to knock back the ghosts on Nightmare to make the DPS check while interrupting him, while DPSing him. It's a very long fight, though. It's almost too long. That fight was like 16 minutes in Nightmare. It is so long.
I think that one's my favorite one too. So I don't think I've tried it in Nightmare mode. I could be wrong, but the story mode is really, really cool. It feels like a big reward at the end of the operation because, as I mentioned, this one's not as aesthetically pleasing. It's not quite as cool of an environment. A lot of the time you're fighting in a underground city or kind of like a bunker area. Nothing super cool to look at. The enemies themselves are not like, wow, I'm fighting a giant XYZ. But here, you get to fight a Dreadmaster. He turns into a giant ghost. He has a bunch of apparitions. You might get to fight your own companion, like a Force Vision. And then you get to fight a giant dragon at the end. Like, it's very rewarding. It feels like you earned your spot at the table to fight this cool boss.
Yeah, I'm with you. So I guess if you're picking Styrak as your favorite, I'll go with the Cartel Warlords as my favorite. Therefore, those two can be saved. So
for me, those guys, especially in story mode and hard mode, they can go right in the garbage because as a tank, they are some of the most boring tank fights, I think, in the entire game for operations. You just go back and forth from wall to wall, no matter what boss you're tanking, whether you're tank A or tank B, and you're just like, what? Am I supposed to be doing something? I'm doing my rotation and running back and forth, but I set it on a macro and stepped away.
Ooh.
So you can keep it, you healer DPS scum.
Whew, we gotta try it on Nightmare sometime because
Okay,
you'll have
bring
a
me.
lot.
Let's
You'll
go.
have a lot more to do. I promise you. So what I'm going to throw away is that operations chief fight where you're going through the town. God, that one.
Ugh.
And you know what? I would throw away the Olok the Shadow fight, but then I wouldn't be able to go take my
The quote at the end.
I wouldn't be able to take my coffee break and have a shower during this incredibly long, incredibly boring, incredibly easy operations boss.
Well, I'm glad you got your coffee. Next up, we're going to talk about some operations where you cannot stop at any point.
I wanted to add here, after S and V, I don't know if you agree, there seemed to be a tone shift.
I do.
A tone shift in operations and how they relate to the story. They always kind of sort of like loosely related to the story and what you were doing, but not really, right? But when Oricon came out, the operations were linked to the story, I think for the first time.
Mhm.
They were part of the story. Did the story
Directly, yeah.
directly, yes. And then you had to go do the ops to finish the story. And I really like that. And I think that is why the Oricon expansion and the 2 operations with it are so good.
It still drives me a bit crazy as someone who interacts a lot with solo-only players who do not want to group up with others. They do this super cool Oricon storyline. They do a lot of work to get the actual story finished. They get to learn about the Dreadmasters. And then, oh, what's the operation? Can someone please help me run through Dread Fortress? I'm like, oh, buddy. It makes me so frustrated that
Aw.
BioWare did not offer an alternative option, but they did do that later on.
All right, so we're on Oricon and we've got Dread Fortress. Who's hiding in the Dread Fortress?
We have Nephra, Gate Commander Draxus, Grobthok, Corruptor Zero, and Brontes. With Mal saying these are some of the 2 best operations in the game, honestly, I was having a hard time finding a way to argue that. The atmosphere of both is just fantastic. The music is great, and Mal's definitely going to cover my other favorite part of these operations, I'm sure, because it is her personal passion. This operation also has my favorite, coolest reward out of any content in the game that cannot simply be purchased, and that is the Wings of the Architect, a collectible item, a mount that I still really want to get, and I have not even passed the final boss in Nightmare mode yet, much less put together a team to farm that sucker till I get my mount drop.
So, do you want to go right into your favorites? Or do you want me to talk about what I love about these ops first?
I want to know what you love!
All right, we got to talk about how good the voiceover is in these ops. It is the best in the entirety of the SWTOR operations universe, hands down. The dialogue,
The best!
the best. The dialogue, the one-liners, they are well written. They are well acted. They are cues for mechanics. They are necessary. And they aren't mixed so loudly that I'm like, fucking stop yammering in my ear, Dreadmasters.
I will quote these all the time, every day, all day. Everybody that I play with quotes them all day, every day. Let's see what we can make of you, shall we? Ha ha! Spin ever downward. Like, we could do this all day. I swear to God, between me and Mal alone, not even like pulling in the rest of our raid team, we could quote this for the next hour. But Mal does have a story about one of her favorites.
I do. We used to fight Nephra, and as you fight Nephra, Brontes is she's kind of laughing at you throughout the whole operation. And at one point she says, Predator,
Predator,
prey. Fear can drive both. And my husband, he said it sounds like she's saying fear can drive boats, which is so hilarious. And now I can't unhear it that fear can drive boats.
Much easier than cheaper than hiring a seaman there.
Yep. No semen here. Thank you. It's part of my life. We're keeping this above board. Saya, jeez.
Is that a boat choke above board?
I don't know about that. Anyway, more jokes to come. So, the top of this, Nephra, might be the biggest joke of any fight ever in Nightmare. It's so easy, and you're like, oh, it's almost like a troll, because you're going, oh, this is really easy. And then you get to Gate Commander Draxus, and you're like, fuck, there's so much going on. I just want to die. I don't want to do this.
Oh my god. Draxus. Okay, so our first boss, Nephra, I actually like that. It's quite easy. I think it's a really great introductory boss to Nightmare Mode operations because you do story, hard mode, Nightmare Mode, and there's basically one more mechanic added each time, and it's really not that much harder. And I think it's a great way to introduce someone to the idea that this gets harder as you go up in difficulty level without completely overwhelming them. I remember back in the day we used to farm Nephra because our team wasn't as good. And that would be one we could easily pass together and get some of the operation-specific master mode loot from at the time. But Traxxas, oh my god, even I don't even want to talk about it. I'm like getting angry and anxious right now.
Is that the one you're putting in the trash then?
I mean, it's a really good learning fight, but I feel like the amount of learning you have to do, particularly in story mode, when I'm trying to run a group through who maybe has never even seen the operation before, and it may even be their first operation, is just so much. There's so much going on. It just feels like a little too much, though. To be a good raid leader in this fight, you purely must memorize the different steps of the fight, and there's like 40 if you break them down, and there's not a ton of visual indicators and differences in the fight compared to the other operations. Some of the other operations have those multiple steps, but the playing board, the field changes a lot, and I'm like, oh, we're at this part now. Draxus, just so much callouts. One thing I do like, though, even in story mode, there is a interrupt mechanic that can wipe your group, even in the easiest mode, and I think that's actually a really good thing. And the burden is actually spread out across your entire group. It's not up to one person, but if nobody does it, your group will die, even in story mode with that mass affliction. I like that.
My favorites is Brontes. There are so many phases. There's so much to know what to do. This is one fight where I can heal, I can DPS, and I can tank on Brontes. And the reward at the end is so, so sweet. You feel like you have accomplished so much by the time you get to the end.
Yeah. Yes. Not only are you very satisfied for completing the fight, Brontes is by far my favorite as well. There's so much going on, as you mentioned, but unlike Draxus, the phases feel distinct and you're doing something very different each time. There's a lot to learn, but it's step by step, not this huge string of memorization that you have to do. And at the end, all the Dreadmaster ghosts pop up in giant form and like they're doing ghost things to a holocron in the center. I don't know what they're doing, but it's cool. So cool.
It is cool. Is that one your favorite as well?
Oh yeah, easy peasy. It's probably one of my favorite fights in the entire game, just of how epic it feels in its entirety.
Yeah. I tell you what though, Corruptor Zero, straight to the trash, right to the trash, with all the trash that he brings along with him.
So as a little sleazy trash panda, I'm gonna go to your garbage can, I'm gonna flick the lid off, I'm gonna go pull that one out and put it back on the table. Because I mostly run this with my 16-man story mode groups, and I love telling them, okay, the giant laser beam's coming, please go stand in the center and feel it tickle you.
That's all well and good, but man, when you're doing 16-man hard mode or nightmare, fuck it, it's your computer. I tried to do this on my old computer, it fucking packed its bags. See you, lady. I quit. This job sucks. God, when the missiles are all going off and the sound, it is just, ugh. There's a lot happening there. I don't love it. Yeah, so you're putting Draxus in the trash?
Nobody puts Draxus in the corner. Except me, where I don't have to run it.
Oh, okay. So who are you putting officially? Who's going in the trash?
Oh, okay. Draxus can stay. All of his 75 different rounds of ads can go straight in the trash. Goodbye.
You know, it was actually a tough call for me between Corruptor Zero and Grobthok because Grobthok is actually a very boring fight, in my opinion.
Is that the guy with the giant pipe? I don't remember much about it.
Yeah, it's just not much going on. It's pretty boring. If you have tanks that don't know what they're doing, it can definitely be spicier if he's not going in the magnet. But
here, allow me to help with that. I'll spice your life by being bad. But yeah. Yep, so Brontes is amazing, the rest, whatever.
And now, we have arrived at my favorite operation in the game, the Dread Palace, or DP. Haha. Love some DP. Do you all love DP
God.
too?
Get out of here. Every time I'm streaming, I accidentally say something like that, and I'm like, I didn't even know that phrase until I started running operations, okay? I don't Google that kind of thing. I'm sorry.
And you shouldn't, and neither should any of you out there.
Don't Google that. If you're going to
Don't.
Google this, look up Dread Palace. Do not look up the acronym.
Ask your mom instead.
You are not our children. We still aren't your parents.
All right. So, in the Dread Palace, we have Bestia, Tyrans, Calpheus, Raptus, and the Dread Council. So, let me start with this. This is my favorite op in the game. I love it. And for each and every fight in this zone, everyone in the group has to be on top of things and know what they're doing and do it and be good at it. And I think that is why I love this one so much. It is so hard, especially at a higher level, to carry people who don't know what they're doing through these fights. And I just really respect that as a player, that it's challenging.
Right. Oh my gosh. So this is the fights that we have been working on lately, the team that me and Mal are on, Dread Palace. And straight from the get-go, Bestia, people keep telling me if you can survive the first 2 minutes of this fight, you will be fine. But hey, the first 2 minutes of those fights are the first 10 minutes of the operation, and you're probably not going to survive it for quite a while. I think it's super cool that it's really hard right off the bat. In story mode, it's not quite as challenging. I talked about how some of the other fights make me mad because they're quite hard in story mode, but this one is really fun to take groups into because not only are the fights interesting, all of them from start to finish, there isn't one of these that I would throw in the garbage. And I'm sorry, Mal, I know that doesn't make for a spicy episode, but I honestly like this one from start to finish in story mode, and so far in nightmare mode, it has been a blast.
Scya, you're gonna die of shock. Because I'm with you. I don't really think I would put any of these in the trash, to be honest with you. This is the one that I stan. This is the opposite I stan, is the Dread Palace. One of the other great things about this is that there's so little trash. There's even less trash than there is in Dread Fortress. It is basically...
There's like a single room of trash, right? It's a big room.
Yeah.
That's about it.
You walk in, there's like a little bit of trash in front of each door, maybe a couple things down the hallway.
I'm sorry. A giant room and a hallway. I apologize. Full of trash. Right. It's super simple. And there's only one type of trash that's even hard. And that's only if your group sucks.
Right. And some of it you can just walk by, stuff like that. It's just so nice. And then when you wipe, it's not like, oh God, let me run back for 10 minutes. The point is to fight these hard bosses. That's the point of this zone. And I really like that.
I know you really want to talk about the final fight for this one, but I want to touch on some of those other bosses first. So our group, like I said, recently has been working on this, and we switched over to Dread Palace because we'd kind of hit a slump with one of the previous operations we were working on. None of us was really kind of having fun. We were just banging our heads against it. We just didn't have a mix of the right combination of stuff to pass it. But we started doing Tyrants, and Tyrants was really hard. We were failing over and over, but the difference was that the fight itself was really fun, and I don't think any of us were getting sick of it till like way, way later than we were compared to a lot of other bosses and other operations. Calpheus is such a weird fight. We actually passed that one fairly quickly together, but it's such a neat idea, future, past, all that kind of stuff. The past affects the future affects the past. And lately, we finished up Raptus, and that's the one with the portals. Honestly, that one's just really chaotic. I don't really know what's going on that fight. Like, I know what to do, but I don't know when I'm looking at the screen half the time what's going on.
It was not a great clear when we
No, it was so messy.
That. That was not a good example. I'm not sure how usable that video footage will be. Although
No.
Sayuri and I looked pretty epic in it, so please use that video footage.
Right. I was very proud of myself. Very proud of myself for being able to bounce back after we did like 6 mechanics wrong in a row. But hey, it was fun doing it. That's all that mattered. And the Dread Council is what we have been working on, and it has been just kicking our butt because like a lot of the other hard bosses in the game, it has a lot of mechanics.
It has been. We are almost there. The council fight on Nightmare is insane. It's already crazy on hard mode because you're dealing with all of them at the same time. Each one of them has a different mechanic, a different thing that they do. Raptish, you have to kite around because he does this terrible circle and knockback thing. Tyrann's is throwing out death marks and thundering blasts like he does in the second fight. Bestia has this nasty red puddle around her, and she just is messing you up, just like in her first fight. And Calpheus, he's like there. He's like the lamest one. It's really sad. He's like just putting these circles on the floor that you just get out of. Poor Calpheus. He was cooler in his fight.
Look, okay, look. He is my boss, and I'm going to babysit his little circles all across the room. And lest you forget, Calpheus is how I murdered you personally. He has a shield around him, and I'm supposed to drop these circles on the ground. And I was getting really crowded. There's another boss in the way, so I decided to zoom, hydraulics, go Vanguard across the room to move him. But I forgot Mal. If Mal hits him while he is running away, she will reflect her own damage back at herself. And unfortunately, she is big girl DPS out the butt, and she killed herself.
Unfortunately,
trash talk Calpheus.
Unfortunately, Mal did not have force speed up, and Calpheus was nice and loaded up with every dot I had, and Stormwatch was coming down on him, and Scya was literally killing me as she ran away. I was like, stop. She said, why? I was like, you're killing me. You're literally killing me running across the room.
I think so far, a lot of the bosses that I've said have been my favorite have been the ones at the end. They are most interesting. They are most epic. For this operation, though, Dread Palace, I think I'd actually put Dread Council as my least favorite. I don't know if I want to relegate it to the garbage because I'm still learning it in Nightmare mode, but a lot of the other fights feel tighter. Like, they feel like they're better mechanics-wise. Dread Council just feels like dumping 40 mechanics down at once, and they're all separated between different members of the group, especially when I'm fighting as a tank in this one. I just do my Calpheus thing for like 5 minutes straight, and then our whole raid group dies. I had nothing to do with it, and I didn't even get to see what happened. It's a rough fight for me as a tank. Maybe it's more fun as a different role.
Yeah, the last fight, it is very chaotic. I think it's funny, though, all this stuff that shows up in it, especially like in Nightmare, Soa shows
dead
up.
Dead bodies, dead babies.
So, what?
That's what the debuffs are called. The dead bodies and the dead babies. I'm sorry. That's what I was told they're called. The severed heads. Come on.
Oh.
You're a healer. You know what I'm talking about.
I call them skeleton, face, coffin, and squiggly thing.
Ooh, you are not nearly morbid enough to talk to the Dread Masters. You are not allowed to get pregnant by them. Sorry.
Yeah, well, Soa comes to throw you around the room, and then Styrak comes back. What?
He's like, hey, I'm a red ghost.
Yeah. then Brontes comes back with a Kel Dragon. What?
Why doesn't Kefis show up in this?
Where is he? What the heck? Maybe he's on he's grounded. You're grounded, Kefis. You've been killed one too many times, buddy. You go to your room and you think about how to do better next time.
Yeah, Dread Palace is cool. That's what I'll end off on. Is anything going in the garbage for you? Anything at all?
I'm sorry, I can't put any of these in the garbage. For me, I guess the weakest fight in here would be Raptus. I guess just because sometimes he doesn't act quite right.
He does some strange things, yeah.
Yeah, he does some weird stuff sometimes, but I don't know that I'd put him in the garbage. But all right, so moving on from both of our love and adoration of DP, that kind of concludes part 1 of this epic operations journey that we are taking. So for now, that's all you get from us, and Scya is going to tell us the news. You heard it here last.
While those are some of the older operations, we are looking forward to some stuff coming up. We're hoping, as far as I know, the expansion is still going to launch on February 15th, 2022. By the time you are listening to this, it should be coming out in a few days. So enjoy that when it does come out. Otherwise, there is the Pirate Incursion event coming up on February 22nd to March 1st. And the anniversary vendor is currently available, so go get your free stuff. Just Google SWTOR anniversary vendor for how to find it. And when the expansion launches, there will also be some new additional items there as well.
And if you're listening this Friday, Relics of the Gree will be running February 8th through February 15th. Ah, I snuck in the news.
We're looking forward to going over all those newer operations and bosses in the next episode.
Absolutely. And as always, please let us know. Who do you love? Who's going in the trash can? It's pretty full already with what we have.
I want to know what bosses are going in the trash can. To let us know, leave a comment on the YouTube video or send us a message on Twitter.
We'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye. You've been listening to the Starforge podcast with Scya and Mal. We know you have your choice of podcasts and you chose the right one. New episodes drop every Friday on Google and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Swtorista's YouTube channel, and just about every other podcast platform in existence. For show notes, pictures, and other information, visit starforgepodcast.com. Hit us up on Twitter at StarforgeCast. We love hearing from you. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you all next week.
All right.
Am I stopping?
Yeah, we're going to stop.
Stop!